Hello, I'm Llewellyn King for CFS Alert, recording this interview in Newton, Massachusetts with members. It's one in a series of interviews with members of the Massachusetts Civics Association. And today's guest is Libby Potter. Welcome to the broadcast, Libby.
Thank you.
How long have you been sick?
I became critically ill on May 20th, 1985, while I was working. I was a senior systems analyst at Wang Laboratories, and I fell asleep 3 times in 15 minutes while I was typing detailed specifications for a financial physical inventory system.
This is very interesting because one of the phenomena of this disease is that most patients know, as you do, exactly when they fell ill. Mm-hmm. This is not true of most other things, or most other diseases where people sort of, even if it's sudden, right, it doesn't register in the mind in the same way. Why do you think that is?
Why do I think
that you remember it so clearly?
Oh gosh, it was like hitting a brick wall. It was just something that was so unnatural and never have experienced before. My life basically, I did drive myself home that day, and after resting for about 2 hours at work, and then I drove home. And when I laid down at home, I didn't get up for 18 hours. And it was like that for the next 3 to 6 months. I was pretty well bedridden most of 5 years. I had about 2 hours a day that I could do something.
How about light and sound intolerance?
Very intolerant. I'm an outdoor person. I always was. I owned a small gentleman's farm or lady's farm, and it hurt to be out in the sun. It hurt to listen to my cat's toenails on the wooden floors. It was anyone speaking to me and they weren't being careful would be harmful. It'd actually cause an upset, I think I would say almost psychologically in some ways. But it just about anything that was overstimulating that would be normal for most people.
How long did this extreme debilitation last? Did you say 5 years? Or?
Well, I was pretty much bedridden for about 5 years. For the following 15 years, I was doing everything holistically, and my experience was different than most. I very gradually started to get better, and I was persistent. I continued to follow the advice of a holistic doctor I had found. The choice was that I would do nothing pharmaceutical because I was so ill. He thought it would be counterproductive. And the 1 or 2 things we did try, he was correct. It was too counterproductive. So I was just always searching for the next thing to try. And in 2004, somebody introduced me to an alkaline program, and I was reluctant because, of course, everything is cash out of your pocket, as everything had been up to that point. I paid cash for massages and acupuncture and just different things, flower essences that I tried, and all those things made improvements. And for me, an improvement could have been minuscule, or somebody else may not even notice. But for me, it was enough of an improvement to kind of stick with it. And let's see, where was I going with that? So in 2004, somebody introduced me to a book a doctor had written, and a PhD doctor, not an MD doctor. And
what was that book?
It's called The pH Miracle, and it's by Dr. Robert O. Young, and he's out of California. And it really just focused on diet and how if we eat more alkaline foods and change the balance in the body, that we would begin to get well. And I kind of rolled my eyes.
What are the alkaline foods?
There's quite a few of them, but I want to be specific. There are several lists of alkaline foods, but not all alkaline foods are alkaline. The way Dr. Young did this is the food, he is a biochemist, And he actually followed what happens after you eat a food and how it digests through the body and what kind of ash it leaves behind. So like if you eat lemons or limes, they're acidic food, but when you digest them, it leaves behind an alkaline residue in the body, okay? So he defines his alkaline foods differently and more articulately than any of the others that I know of. So I just followed his protocol, and over the course of a year, I noticed I was getting better, and just better and better and better, significantly. So it actually got me out of bed, and I had called to see if I could go there to work with him, and I found that he had a couple of courses that could be taken. Now, when I first started the program, I couldn't have even figured out what to put in my suitcase to go away. I wouldn't have been able to figure that out. But by the end of the year, I knew I could pack a suitcase and I could get myself to the airport. I knew I couldn't rent a car in a strange area because I wouldn't be safe. So I had to be able to pay for shuttle services and such. And I traveled in April of 2006. I traveled out to California to study with Dr. Young. And I have 2 certificates as a nutritional microscopist is the certificate that they told me about, they taught me. And so I followed that protocol, and I was able to look at my own blood under the microscope when I get home. I have a biological microscope, and I was able to do my own blood and check it, and I could see myself starting to get better. I could see things happening in my blood that told me I was getting better. And as long as I stick with that alkaline diet, now it's not always easy to do because
I was going to say it's
not
very hard.
easy. It's very hard, and if you have support, you need financial support, support with the people in the household, getting your food, preparing the food, cleaning up afterwards.
What foods in a normal day, what would you eat for your lunch and your dinner?
I would eat, for breakfast, I eat green salads, cucumbers, avocados, and there's in the back of the book that I mentioned, and there's another book, The pH Miracle for Weight Loss. Those 2 books have all alkaline recipes in them. So if someone buys the book, the recipes are in the back of the book. I, for lunch, again, try to have as much green food as I can, and same for supper. But if I'm out, as I become more active, it's harder to do that all the time.
Well, it's very hard if you're eating out.
It's very hard if you're eating out. You have to be very choosy, and sometimes I can't do it. I'm at the point now where I can just grab something, and it doesn't affect my health immediately.
On a scale of 1 to 10, at your worst, I assume you were at a 1 or 2.
I'd say less than 1, but okay.
All right, where are you today?
I think I'm at a good 6 or 7, a 7 at this point.
Are you working as such? Or?
No, I haven't worked for 32 years. What I'm doing is volunteering my time with the Massachusetts CFS ME and FM Association. And I started in 2011, I believe, was November of 2011, was the first time I went to one of the local meetings. And I met up with Charmian and Alan, and we immediately all had the same focus of trying to help children. And we began putting together a program to help educate school nurses so that we could get the information out to school nurses, because they're like the canary in the coal mine.
That's the cutting edge. That's when they first see it.
And the statistics are that I was told by the director of all school nurses for the state of Massachusetts, and we happen to have apparently a very well organized director and a network within the school nurses in Massachusetts. Not all states are that good. But we were able to go to a conference and give a presentation in, I think it was August of 2012. And we have a permanent connection with the director, and I continually put out newsletters so that when something is news breaking, I make sure all the school nurses in Massachusetts get that newsletter.
Do you have a number for the number of children in Massachusetts that are afflicted?
I don't know that we do. I think the number for everyone is between 27,000 and 28,000 in the state. Currently, because there's been no epidemiological study done, we don't have a good idea about children. However, there is one being done in Chicago right now. Dr. Lenny Jason is doing an epidemiological study.
I know Lenny.
And after I think he comes up with his statistics, then we can probably figure out an estimated number that might be inflicted in the state of Massachusetts.
How do the school nurses receive you? Is there pushback, or are they open?
Well, when we did the conference, we asked for a raise of hands of how many people thought they had seen children with this illness. And probably 3 hands went up out of a group of about 200 to 250 school nurses. And then we proceeded with stories and medical information. Actually, Alan gave a presentation, and by the end of it, I stood up and said, "Now, how many people think now that they have seen children that have this illness?" And there were quite a few. Probably 1/3 of the nurses raised their hands.
And what do you plan to do going forward with nurses, with children in general?
Well, the most important push right now through the advocacy that this group is doing is we really need to push to educate pediatricians in the state, because they don't know. They don't have any information. And so with the group that Alan's been working with the pediatric primer.
Alan is Alan Gerwit.
Dr. Alan Gerwit.
Correct.
Yes.
We've had on a separate broadcast.
Yes, yes. And so with their effort to get that out, we're hoping to, and another effort is working with the CFS group in Washington. Charmian and I traveled there in this past January.
That is Charmian Proskauer.
Charmian Proskauer, yes.
Who is the chairman and president of
the president, yes, and I'm the vice president of the organization. We traveled together to, I lost my train of thought. This is part of the illness.
No, I do it too, and I haven't got the illness.
But this is it. But it's part of the advocacy. Oh, there's a working group, a medical education working group was formed during that meeting, and with the intention of particularly targeting pediatric doctors, and hopefully from the national level down.
Now, you're not going to say to children you have to follow this diet.
No.
Very difficult.
No, everything that I have done has nothing to do with what's being done medically at this point. What I would like to do at some point is sit down and write down everything I did and find a research group that would be willing to take it on. I don't quite know how that will work. At the IACFSME conference in October, I spoke to 3 of the top researchers around the world about this, and they said to me, get us some information and we'll start looking at it. But I haven't been able to put it together yet.
A lot of people believe diet is important. The other thing which seems to be very important from a lay perspective is mold. Have you done work on mold, or are you yourself sensitive to mold?
Mold is absolutely an allergy, which will cause. It's an anaerobic. It's anaerobic environment, and we certainly need aerobic environment. So even though I don't myself have that particular sensitivity that I know of, I absolutely believe that it can affect people.
We do have people who've moved to the desert and live in specially constructed trailers and structures to avoid any of the normal aggravations, mold, chemicals, etc. You don't feel that you were affected by airborne irritants?
I don't think so. I know that after I got sick, I had a whole lot of symptoms that I never had before, and I was extremely sensitive to chemical sensitivities. One of the things that I found interesting is one of my holistic doctors recommended I get all my amalgam fillings taken out of my mouth and replaced with composites. And I took a deep breath and laid out the money to do it. And my immune system started to work better afterwards. As soon as they were out, within a very short period of time, there are certain things that just significantly started getting better. And of course the dentists, the traditional dentists, had told me I was...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because they thought this is not true at all. But I had been connected with a holistically minded dentist. And so I dropped the traditional dentist and went to this holistic dentist and had it all that stuff taken care of.
There is a problem with holistic medicine, and that is the quacks and the charlatans and people who are, taking advantage of the sick. How do you determine the sincerity of a practitioner and the likelihood that the practice is ethical and will work or might work or has track record?
I don't know if I know how to answer that. There are a couple of, I think I was just very fortunate that as I followed my leads, that I ended up with very reputable people. I do know that two of the holistic doctors that I went to were considered quacks and challenged at the court level, which was a very difficult thing for them and for me, as a matter of fact. But they certainly were not quacks, in my opinion. In my opinion, they're not. I don't know, I didn't come up against anyone that I felt was into quackery of any kind, so I am reluctant to accept, that premise.
Libby, you mentioned various things that you went through, acupuncture, various oils and ointments, and
I mentioned flower essences.
Essences.
And chiropractic work. And
How many of those do you still practice or do?
I don't do many of them now because my finances came to an end. And so I don't have the flexibility. I have just one or two practitioners now that I see that I feel continually are supportive to me. I used to, before I ran out of money, I could spend somewhere around $800 a month between supplements and practitioners and other things that I needed to do. But after when I learned about the alkaline diet, I pretty well learned how to self-care. And I didn't seem to need to be going to practitioners of any kind anymore.
Do you feel that you're missing a lot following this diet? Do you feel very denied in food?
I don't feel denied.
No.
I don't.
So you enjoy the food?
I enjoy the food, and I know academically what the benefits are for me. So when you've been as sick as I have been, and I'm sure many others have been, you're willing to make the sacrifice to change. But when you see the positive come, I mean, why would I ever want to go back? Why would I ever want to go back and eat the way most people eat, or the way I was taught to eat as a child?
Libby Potter, wonderful to talk to you. Good luck with your work with the Massachusetts CFS or CFS.
CFS.
Do you mind if I say CFS?
No.
I can blame it on my accent.
You can.
That's right. And good luck to you. Wonderful to talk. Cheers.
Thank you.